Welcome in. I am Thirdmango, and we're going to be doing a Brazilian Girls Dossier. This is a continuing series where I look at the band's overall output and just go through them album by album, see what I think, give an overall rating of the band, uh, and yeah, this is the Brazilian Girls. So back in 2005. I went into a Sam Goody at the Universal City Walk in Orlando, Florida. I was going to Disney World that year, and in the CD section, there was a promotional CD of all the new music of that week. On that CD was the song Don't Stop by the Brazilian Girls. Don't stop now. A crunchy dance pop hit with some interesting soundscapes and a pulse that kept vibes hot and heavy. I quickly picked up the album it was off of, and over the next couple of years, this band became one of my favorite groups of the mid 2000s. Most people will know this band either from just the song I mentioned, Don't Stop, or the other big song off of that album, Pussy. A song which basically just says, pussy, 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 marijuana, over and over. It's a silly track, not one of my favorites, but its longevity kept the band in the public eye for the next couple of years. So, who are the Brazilian Girls? Whatever happened to this group? This is Thirdmango Dossier, looking at the band, Brazilian Girls. The Brazilian Girls are one of those bands that aren't at all what they say they are. They're not from Brazil. There's only one girl. This band consists of four members. Sabina Scuiba, the vocalist, born in Rome, raised in Munich and Nice. Apologies if I say it incorrectly. Didi Gutman, keyboards from Argentina. Jesse Murphy on bass. And Aaron Johnston on the drums. Now, what makes this band interesting? Why even listen to a band like this? Well, it's the eclectic experimentation that happens across this discography. So to get into this band, let's immediately start in and lead with their debut. The album from 2005, Brazilian Girls. I mentioned Don't Stop and Pussy. These are arguably the most famous songs on the album, but it's not where I want to start. I want to start with my favorite on the album, and that is the fourth track, Les Sirenes de la Fête. This song establishes the Brazilian Girls as a band that is multicultural and multilingual. This song is clearly in French, but across the album you'll hear lyrics in English, French, Spanish, German, Italian, 5 languages across a single record is in itself a big swing. Michael Picone of the Department of Modern Languages and Classics at the University of Alabama has described this concept within music as code switching, when an artist jumps around to different languages mid-song. This type of occurrence happens more often now. Look at modern K-pop, J-pop, and you'll find 3 to 4 different languages intermixed into every song. But this was back in 2005. While they started in New York, where they could be more experimental, this was a tone shift which wasn't guaranteed to promote their success. Sabina's code switching helps to blur her identity, and it's the common language she brings on the stage as well. When touring, she always had lots of grandiose costuming, interesting face masks, wild, flamboyant outfits. It's all a change-up, continually code switching to create a diverse identity. Even the naming convention of Brazilian Girls illicit identity, showing the silliness that is in naming conventions and not actually being any of these things that the name showcases. But what is ultimately important, at least for me, is the instrumentation going on at the same time. Sabina's wild and interesting code switching mixed with a band that is experimenting with bossa novas, crunchy bass lines, moody soundscapes, wild drumming. This is a good, strong debut. It's not my favorite, but there are a couple of songs that are true standouts. The other song on this album to make sure to listen to before you move on is the haunting groove jam that is Die Gedanken sind frei, or Thoughts Are Free. The piano mixed with bass and drums and occasional strings as well as Sabina's staccato German lyrics create a truly interesting, experimental track that creates such an interesting vibe. Now, I'm again not a big fan of pussy phrasing, but the song Pussy to me is annoying. It makes sense why it's famous, but the three songs on the album, which are the keepers, are Die Gendecken sind frei, Les Sirènes de la Fête, and the pop hit Don't Stop. Otherwise, the rest of the album does show why this is a debut album, as the songs are interesting, but they don't really sit anywhere that other songs don't already sit. This album peaks out at a 4 out of 5 stars for me and showcases the early stages of an interesting band. So let's move on to the second album, Talk to La Bombe, from 2006. The sophomore album from this band hits with my favorite song by this band, the absolute tour de force that is Hike. This song starts with the crunchiest bass line that you could ever hear. It's nearly a funk metal bass groove put into a pop track with French and English lyrics interchanged to create a full eclectic soundscape and a really banging pop song. Now, I want to discuss something that starts to become apparent on this record, and to do that, I'm going to look into the future of this band. This album came out in 2006, but in 2019, a year after their fourth album, the band splits up, or more so, Sabina leaves the band. The Brazilian girls are still touring without Sabina, and they have on guests to fill the singer role in each of their concerts, and Sabina went on to have a solo career. In doing this project, I wanted to see where the band went at this point. So I listened to the 3 albums done by Sabina as a solo artist, and I don't really like them at all. I thought I would love them because I love how she sounds in this band. Her first solo album, Toujours, actually came out in 2014. She essentially tried a solo career, and then the 4th album by the full band came out in 2018, and then she left for good in 2019. I'm going to say that this is one of the cases of the band knew how to use Sabina to create something special, but without those extra voices, Sabina, when left to her own devices, is just not really enjoyable for me. Let me be even more specific. On her 2020 album, Force Majure, the 6th track on that is called Love, and it's 1 minute, 50 seconds of her saying the word love, and only the word love, over and over. She says love about once a second, which would be approximately around 100 loves in a 2-minute song. There isn't a fun beat. There isn't musical content. It's just the same word repeating. And this example is not an outlier. The 5th song, I Know You Too Well, has the words you know me repeated over and over for 4 minutes as she plays first grade level piano. It's just so avant-garde and it's not good. Gone are the crunchy bass riffs, the dance hits. The one song from her solo career I really like is from the 2014 solo project, Toujours, called Toujours. And I love this song because it feels like a Brazilian girl song. It has interesting musical accompaniment throughout. Sabina is a force to be reckoned with when she has interesting music behind her, giving her that force that makes her voice into something super interesting. Without the rest of the band to filter her and create an interesting collaboration, her music is just too insane. It's too unkempt. I preamble all of that and come back to what is one of the best albums by the Brazilian girls, where you can hear the tension starting to form. That is a band that is collaborating at a high speed, but also the cracks are starting to form, and sometimes the songs on this record and the rest of the product from here on out start to have Sabina songs and Brazilian girls songs. So for me, I come from a tradition of jazzy rock, of interesting blues riffs, of crunchy bass and fun tunes. So when the band is showcasing these kinds of things, the songs excel. Look at the previously mentioned Hike, or Never Met a German, Les Territoires, and the hit of the album Last Call. These are all hit interesting beats and have a crunchy dance to back them up. The songs where you start to hear a riff come in are songs like Talk to the Bomb and Rules of the Game. Rules of the Game especially seems to really have this push and pull as the instruments and Sabina almost fight against each other, each with a different vision of where they want this song to go. Then on the lower end are the tracks like Nicotine, All About Us, and Sexy Asshole. Sexy Asshole is an interesting one, as the instrumentation is truly interesting. It's just ruined by the juvenile lyrics of Sexy Asshole. When she's singing in another language, it's interesting. And when she just repeats Sexy Asshole over and over, it feels weird. So overall, great album, despite reservations. It's a 4.5 out of 5. It's incredible output by the band. And an album which goes into some really interesting spaces, musically, and overall really got me into the band in that era. The third album is 2008's New York City. This is a very good record. This one doesn't have as much push and pull and almost seems to really lean into the interesting nature of the band. This album seems to take what was good on the second album and improve on it. And the disjointed nature I felt from the second album is much less prevalent this time around. The album does a great job of mixing in bossa nova, jazz, and salsa into the already electric style of the band, and the composition of the songs overall is tighter and more fluid. The standouts of this album are St. Petersburg, Losing Myself, which has a guest appearance by David Byrne, Novu American, and my personal favorite track, Ricardo. Each of these continues the upbeat and driving tone of the songs that have already made them popular. There are some missteps as well. L'Interprète is an acoustic slow jam, which doesn't work really within the rest of the album. The final song, Mano de Dios, seems to just be a soundscape song, and International, while having good instrumentation, is just the singer showcasing that they know the names of a whole bunch of cities around the world. Overall, 4.5 out of 5, top contender, great album. So then, we come to the first solo output by Sabina, Toujours. I've already gotten into it a little bit before, but this came out in 2014, and I won't harp on too much about it. As I said, most of what I think in the second album, but essentially every song except two, are slow with annoying lyrics. The only songs I liked on this were the pop song Vive l'amour and the previously mentioned title track Toujours. Overall, this is a 1.5 out of 5 from me. So then we move on to 2018, when the band got back together and created 2018's Let's Make Love. This is a really interesting album, and David Byrne's influence is felt on this record. Let's talk about David Byrne for a moment. David was featured on one track on the most previous album, New York City, in which he guest starred in the song, Losing Myself. The second track of the album, it's a good song, but this started a fun collaboration with the band. In 2018, around the time this album was put out, the drummer Aaron Johnston became the drummer for David Byrne's touring act for American Utopia, and it was in a supergroup called Big Brazilian Cheese, which included his bandmate Jesse Murphy, included John Schofield, and members of the bands Big Galactic and the String Cheese Incident, both bands I've been into for years from the jam band scene. So it makes a lot of sense when listening to this Brazilian Girls record and hearing the David Byrne inspiration and the jam band inspired funk that this record really showcases what the band Brazilian Girls can do. So for this album, they really seemed to understand how their pop songs worked in the last album and pushed themselves in that direction. Gone are the experimental sounds, and instead, this album has a lot of driving pop songs, which is interesting that this was the last time they really saw eye to eye as a band. The first half of this album was really good, and definitely showcased that they listened to David Byrne and went for a more Talking Heads style. My favorite song is The Critic. It's a pulse-pounding driving bop, and it shows some real good pop music chops without getting too crazy with their old experimentation sounds. Wild Wild Web definitely feels like an ode to Wild Wild Life by the Talking Heads. The first song on the album, Pirates, is also clearly just a good pop song which shows maturity from the band. Somehow the track I dislike the most has over 8 million listens on Spotify, and it's called Karakoi. I couldn't really figure out how it has so many listens. Other than I tried to figure out what the big deal was, and I found one small NPR 2-paragraph film about the song calling it a teary daydream. I suppose that's fine. Overall, this pops at 4.5 out of 5, and it's a really cool, interesting output from the band. Unfortunately, from here, the band itself hasn't put out anything besides touring. So this is where I last listened to the band and continue with Sabina's last 2 records in the 2020s. I won't spend too long on it, but 2020's album Force Majure was one of my least favorite albums of all time. I liked one song a little bit. The rest of the album was just repetition and bad music. This gets up 0.5 out of 5 for me, the lowest rating that I can give. And right now it's my least favorite album of the 2020s as a decade. Finally is 2023's Sleeping Dragon, which is better than Force Majeure and better than Toujours overall. It only comes in at a 2 out of 5 stars, but it is the best overall output from Sabina as a solo artist. There aren't really any key tracks, mostly just to say Sabina, when she plays with instruments, can sometimes come up with interesting things, but her lyrical ability is much to be desired because she still thinks that repetition is apparently the way to go. So that's it overall. Sabina's solo career has been an overall miss for me, except for the title track on her 2014 album Toujours. It's a really cool track worth checking out, and when looking back at the 4 albums by the band together, they had this really distinctive, interesting sound. The first album is overall my least favorite album, but each album does still score at least 4, so overall, it's a band I've really enjoyed throughout the years. I think maybe given a couple of years of listening to 2018's album Let's Make Love, it might eventually become my favorite record by the band, but in official rankings as of now, I'm going to put it at self-titled, 4th place, Talk to La Bombe, 3rd place, Let's Make Love in 2nd, and New York City in 1st. But each album has a 5-star massive hit, and the song Hike I've probably listened to at least a couple hundred times, if not 1,000, in the years since it's come out. Brazilian Girls will have a legacy for me as being a multicultural, very intriguing code-switching band, and one which influenced the styles of music I listen to. As I continue to put out more of these, you'll find I really gravitate towards bands doing interesting things, changing up their sound, taking risks. And while I don't like Sabina's output since leaving the band, I can commend her for taking risks, as this has always been her choice in music. I like bands that try things even if it goes against the grain. And this band is one which was influential enough for me that I'm still listening to them on a regular basis now 20 years after their first hits. So what do you think? Any opinions on the band The Brazilian Girls? Any bands that sound like them that you're into? What other bands do you think I should do a dossier on? I have a couple more of these in the pipeline upcoming, so stay tuned for those. And thanks for coming around. I've been Thirdmango. I stream live on Twitch at Thirdmango, so come yell at me there. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next dossier. Thanks for coming.